Hey, welcome to What's the FIC, where two nerdy librarians, Gina and Meg, discuss everything from literature to movies, gaming, education, anime, manga, and more. All your favorite things you get geeked about, we talk about. Plus, we give you tips on all the latest free resources from the library. So, let's get into the thick of it.
All right. Hello and welcome back to What's the FIC, an Augusta-Richmond County Public Library System podcast. This week, we're going to be talking about Banned Books Week. We're so excited. We have a special guest with us today. Can you please introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Andre. I'm with the Augusta-Richmond County Public Library System, and I'm so excited to get into this week's episode with you ladies.
Yeah! Woo! All of the sound effects. All right. All right. As I said before, we are starting off with Banned Books Week. And just so you know, we have lots of things to talk about. I mean, there's probably things that you guys didn't even know were banned books, but let's first of all get into what is banned books. Gina, can you give us a little detail as to what Banned Books Week is?
Sure thing, Meg. So, Banned Books Week is an annual event that we have that celebrates the freedom to read. So, this week was launched in 1982 in response to a sudden surge in the number of challenges to books anywhere books have access or are sold. So, that's schools, that's bookstores, libraries, and typically it's held at the last week of September, and it just highlights the value of free and open access to information. It's a chance for the entire book community, so librarians, booksellers, publishers, journalists, teachers, readers, for everyone to come together in support of the freedom to seek and express ideas, even when sometimes other people consider those ideas unorthodox or unpopular.
Very true. And so the ALA, which is the American Library Association, is part of a national coalition to promote banned books, as Gina just explained, along with basically other contributors and sponsors. And of course, Banned Books Week this year starts September 26th and it runs to October 2nd. Now, there's usually a theme every year for banned books. This year, it's Books Unite Us, Censorship Divides Us. So, for all you libraries out there or just patrons who are interested in Banned Books Week, you can go to their website, bannedbooksweek.org, to check out more information and to get other resources about banned books. Now, we do have a list of the most challenged books each year. Some of these titles you're probably familiar with, and some of these you've probably never heard of. Andre, would you please help us know what is the first challenge book on the list this year?
Of course, yes. It's Stamped Racism, Anti-Racism, and You by Ibram X. Kendi and Jason Reynolds. Now, a few quotes from the book. The construct of race has always been used to gain and keep power, to create dynamics that separate and silence. Racist ideas are often woven into the fabric of this country, and the first step to building an anti-racist America is acknowledging America's racist past, present. And this book is supposed to take you on a journey showing you how the racist ideas started and were spread and how they can be discredited. Now, a history of racist and anti-racist ideas in America, from their roots in Europe until today, adapted from the National Book Award winners, stamped from the beginning. Now, the reasons why this particular book was banned and challenged was because of the author's public statements and because of the claims that the book contains sensitive or selective storytelling incidents and does not encompass racism against all people. We also have a kids adaptation and a picture adaptation of this book, Stamped for Kids, Anti-Racism, Racism and You, adapted by Sonia Cherry Paul from the above mentioned book, and Anti-Racist Baby by Ibram X. Kendi as well.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. There's like 3 different versions. So for all ages, basically, anybody can get into this book. And of course, you can check it out at the Augusta-Richmond County Public Library system. Any of our libraries, we do have several copies of these books. That leads us to number 2 on the list of banned books, To Kill a Mockingbird. I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with this book by Harper Lee. It's something that's actually required a lot of times in
Hmm.
school for reading. I'm
Mhm.
sure all of us have read it. But basically, the details in this book, the synopsis, is that it tells the story through the eyes of our main character, Scout Finch. And you learn about her father, Atticus Finch, who's an attorney who's trying to prove an innocent black man because he's been accused of rape, basically. And you also get to know other characters, such as Boo Radley, is kind of like their mysterious neighbor, and they save Scout and her brother Jim basically from being killed. But the reason why this book in particular has been banned in schools in the past, it was challenged for its racial slurs and the negative effect on students, and also, of course, featuring a white savior type of character and its perception of the black experience. So,
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the To Kill a Mockingbird, when I was growing up, we actually had to sign permission slips by our parents in order
mm,
to read the book in class. And if you didn't get your parent to sign it, you had to actually step into another class. You couldn't actually be in class while it was being read. So you were assigned a different book to read.
wow.
This book is far from like over
Mhm.
being challenged because it's been challenged since I was a kid. And that was in middle school. I want to say that was about 7 or so years ago for me. So
Wow.
yeah,
Oh,
this is
wow.
a reoccurring challenge for this book.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had to read it, like Meg mentioned, like it was required reading in, I want to say about 10th grade.
Mm.
We definitely didn't have the experience. So people read another book. So they just kind of like completely skipped over it and they had
Mhm.
some other curricular from them that like, I don't know. Listen, that's why it's banned books week, right?
Yeah.
So the next one that has definitely been challenged quite a bit, we have both the DVD and the book here at
Mhm.
ARCPLS, is The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. Um, so it's the story of a 16-year-old girl, Star Carter, and she has her own problems, her own life, and she's thrusted into the spotlight after she gets a ride home from her childhood friend Khalid, who at a police stop is shot.
Mm.
And after that moment, she decides that she's going to stand up for the injustices that have happened to her friend, and of course, to many other people of color or POCs here in America. So, why is it challenged? It has profanity in it, but also is thought to have an anti police message. Now, I haven't had a chance to read the book nor in order to enjoy the movie. I just think right now, for me, even when it
Mhm.
came out, I felt like it was very sensitive subject matter just for me to view and look at. Have
Mhm.
either one of you looked at the movie or read the book?
Um, for me, it's the same thing with you, Georgina. It's a very sensitive topic, and especially with today's political climate, especially throughout this year, it's just been one of those things that you have to kind of pull back from. Now, I completely support the work in the DVD and the book, but it's just one
Same.
of those things where it's
Mm.
like I don't really want to kind of have that energy in my presence right at this
Yes,
present time in my
yes.
life. I
Mm.
think when I get through some more healing, maybe I could
Yeah.
take a chance and watch it or read the book.
Yeah, yeah. That's actually pretty interesting. I actually watched the movie The Hate You
Okay.
Give. I haven't read the book just yet, but I did watch the movie and I think it does a really great job of portraying real life events, these
Mhm.
unfortunate circumstances that happen to people of color in America. So it really does a very great job of showing the reality of what it's like. So I would say definitely watch the movie, but definitely read the book first. I think you'll definitely get some more details that you don't get in the movie, as that happens a lot, of course.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think one of the next books that was actually challenged is the Melissa story, formerly known as George, by Alex Gino. It's also available here at the ARCPLS library. Now, this is the novel of the story following Melissa, a fourth grade girl who is struggling to be herself to the rest of the world, as the rest of the world sees Melissa as George, a boy. Now, the reasons why this particular book was challenged was and banned and restricted was for its inclusion of LGBTQIA content, which conflicts with religious viewpoints and is not reflecting, quote unquote, the values of the community.
Yeah. There's a lot of books here that deal with a lot of topics that are very prevalent to today's society. So
Hmm.
definitely check those
Mm,
out. There's more on the list, but those are our top four most challenged books of 2020.
mm,
So we were talking about all kinds of things like challenge books, banned books, censorship, but as Gina always says, we're going to do a little term cleanup here. So, what do all these terms mean? We're going to start off with challenge. A challenge book is an attempt to remove or restrict materials based upon the objections of a person or group. So, anytime you hear the word challenge, you'll know that that book has been attempted to be removed as from libraries, from schools, mostly school libraries, public libraries or more often to have it. But yeah, anytime you hear that term, that's what that means. But then that leads us to banned
Yes,
books.
and banned books are actually the removal of these materials from the library system or from wherever it is available. So it's actually not available to be checked out or bought anymore because it's completely banned.
Hmm.
right. And how most of this comes about is, of course, through censorship. So, censorship is the suppression of ideas and information that certain persons, so it could be individuals, groups, government officials, that find something within the material objectionable or dangerous. So, how do these all, fit together? So, essentially, some entity, some individuals, groups, parents, they see the material, they get a chance to look at the material, and they're like, oh no, like, maybe the kids are too young, or maybe they just it don't fit with their particular values, or they just don't believe in some of the things that the book is stating. And due to their need for them to feel like that particular thing should be censored, they then challenge
Mm.
that material. So the challenge might be, uh, like we were talking about earlier with To Kill a Mockingbird.
Hmm.
Maybe some parents will get together, or maybe some individuals will get together and be like, oh no, like this material just cannot be. They go to the school board and they try to get it taken out. If that entity that has the book, that library, that school, that bookstore, if they comply and have decided that the challenge will go through, then it is banned. And that's when those materials are completely removed. So I hope that
Mm.
helps you kind of see how all these kind of pieces fit together. Um,
Yeah, and that really does.
and on, go
No, I'm
ahead.
sorry. I just think that was a really cool point that you made because it really does beg the question of like, what is the responsibility of libraries with concerns to censorship? Like
Hmm.
the American Library Association has a Bill of Rights, and it was adapted in 1939 to express guidelines and practices that all libraries and their workers should follow. This bill expresses that libraries should provide information and knowledge to all.
It does. And just what the bill says about handling censorship specifically, and I quote, this says, libraries should challenge censorship in the fulfillment of their responsibility to provide information and enlightenment. So if you're ever wondering why you might not see a book such as stamped in your child's school library, but you might see it here in the public library. Most of the time, it's because we're upholding the ALA's guidelines for censorship. Sometimes they do get challenged in the school district, and they might decide, hey, this might be taken out. And that's where that banned word comes from. That's the removal of those materials. So that might happen. But there is a lot of material, very old material that I'm sure our parents have read, their parents have read, that some people might not know were actually banned. But it's so funny now that these books are required reading now for most kids in school,
Mhm.
Yes.
right? I mean, can you guys think of any books that you've read or you know of that are like old classics that might have been banned?
Yeah, specifically Diary of Anne Frank. I remember that being a required reading in my middle
Mhm.
school. And it was originally banned for being sexually offensive and depressing, but we actually had to read it because we were doing a unit on the Holocaust, and
Mm.
Mm.
we had to read the Diary of Anne Frank and like do units on it. But it's really funny that you bring that up because like that particular book, was so formative and so it let us have a more intimate a more intimate understanding of that
Mhm.
experience. And it was kind of necessary for us to read that to kind of fully understand it better from a more personal perspective. So yeah, that was one of the books that I found that I had to actually read in school that I
Mhm.
did not know was banned.
Mm.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. What about you, Gina? I mean, like, what have you read that, you know, just like, what? This was banned back in the day? I had to read this book.
Listen, I will say that I was not exactly the best required reader student, and I definitely skipped some required readings, but I definitely
Okay.
remember specifically The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald being
Mm.
Mm.
like all the rage. That was like one of the few required readings that like
Mhm.
everybody in class seemed to love.
Mhm.
And part of the reason it was banned or challenged is because it was considered very explicit and
Mhm.
it was considered sexually offensive. And what's so interesting is that this book is a loved classic, right? Like
Right.
Mhm.
there are two movies. Like
Yeah.
I've seen both of them. I definitely saw,
Mhm.
both of them. And of course, there's the scene where someone gets hit with a car and, all the things. But like, it's such a well loved, like, classic now. It's kind of strange to think that people were like, no, I'm not going to read that. And that's one
Mhm.
of F. Scott's, like, claim to fame.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
What about you,
Pretty.
Megan?
Um, I remember seeing The Catcher in the Rye by
Mhm.
J.D. Salinger. I didn't
Mm.
I didn't fully read it. I'm be honest with you guys. I know we probably shouldn't even be saying this as, library workers, but I said it. I didn't read the whole The Catcher in the Rye. Anyways, but this book was banned, mostly for kind of similar things as The Great Gatsby, like offensive language, unsuited for certain age groups, and of course sexual content being in there. But yeah, that's another one that I don't know if you guys didn't know. Now you know. Catcher in the Rye, another banned book.
Yeah, I think another big one too, that I just thought about too is The Color Purple.
Mm.
That
Mm.
actually was banned for homosexuality, sexually explicit content, offensive language, and it's really crazy because when you think about it, it was never required reading for us, but it
Mhm.
was definitely one of those books that everybody kind of was like talking about. There was like buzz about it, especially when the movie came out. And it's like it's really the same thing about kind of like the Diary of Anne Frank, where it's like the content itself is very intense, but it's
Mhm.
very necessary to
Mm.
get a very good understanding of that particular time period, and understanding how it may have came from, how it may have been experienced from somebody from that particular time period. So it really is a more intimate look into that life. But
Mhm.
it's just really
Yeah.
funny to think that it was banned because of those particular ideals.
Right,
Mhm.
right. And that, of course, leads us to more newer titles, things that were done in this century. So I'm sure
Yes.
a lot of of our younger audience are probably familiar with some of these titles here. But for all you parents out there who may not know, or your grandparents, here's some titles that are more current that have actually been challenged or banned from libraries. So just to start off, I want to throw this one in there because it was one of my favorites as a kid. But actually, I'm gonna throw two in there because these both of these are really nice. But Bridge to Terabithia, I loved that book. It was so great. And not to be spoiling anything, but just get your tissues out when you read this. Just know that. Okay?
Mhm.
There was a movie that went with this book as well, but it was actually banned for vulgar language and profanity. Now, when I read it when I was in school, I didn't have a clue. I didn't know, and I really didn't notice that much of vulgar language or profanity in the book when I read it. But yeah, I love that book. I'm gonna also throw in Captain Underpants because I had like every book. Okay, when I was a kid, I would go to like the Scholastic book fair and be like, "I want this,
Yes.
this, and this. I want that one and that one." All of them. So, but this book was challenged because of the offensive language and misbehavior of the characters in the book.
Misbehavior?
Yeah, the silly things that they would do, they would call certain characters like Professor Poopy Pants and things like that, and
Mm.
it's just like, "Really? Is that
That's the
offensive?"
best
But
part.
hey, yeah, I know, right? That's funny, that's mostly funny for kids. But, yeah, I find that very interesting that that was banned because of, yeah, offensive language. Mm.
Yeah, that also, thinks about, like, The Hunger Games. Like, that
Mm,
was I
yes.
read all 3 of those books and watched all 3 of those movies, and it's just really funny to think because I never really second guessed it growing up because when I was in middle school, my aunt bought those books for me, but I never really thought about the fact that some of
Mhm,
it actually wasn't in the actual library for checkout, and I
mhm.
didn't really know why.
Oh,
I just wasn't, aware of it at the time, but
Oh.
I think it like, at that time, it wasn't, available in the library because of the material that it, covered.
Mhm,
Nowadays, I believe it's a little bit it's not it is available, but,
mhm,
yeah.
and when I was growing up, like, yeah, we actually had to buy the books themselves because it was very violent and a little bit gory, in some parts. But,
mhm,
that once again, it's a fictional story about, about some, a situation. So it's just really funny that that particular book was banned when it was.
mhm. Right.
Hmm.
Gina, what about you?
So I feel like I do this every episode, but like Harry Potter. Harry
Dun, dun,
Potter,
dun.
for sure.
Yep.
I grew up with the characters. Like I grew up with them. It was released when I was like in middle school. I remember the first movie came out when I was in sixth grade,
Mm,
and it was wildly popular. But of course, Harry Potter. They said like, oh, witchcraft,
mhm,
and they had like it supposedly had actual curses and spells, and they had nefarious ways for the characters in order to like obtain their goal and different things like that. So
mhm,
yeah, it got challenged, got banned. It still
mm,
pops up sometime
mhm.
too, like on like lists.
Yeah.
The other one is Drama by Telgemeier, which I actually read recently, which I
Mhm,
really loved. It's basically just the story of like this girl, and she loves drama. Like that is the basis, but it is challenged and also removed in some places because it does have LGBTQIA plus characters and themes, and some people saw it or see it as detrimental to family values and views. So
yeah, that's interesting. I mean, a lot of these books are so necessary though for children, for teenagers, for adults. A lot of
mm,
these can be taken as
Mhm.
learning something new, learning to be accepting. You
Mm.
know,
oh yeah.
so it's funny how a lot of these become challenged and ultimately
No,
sometimes banned.
I
Um,
think not only that, but we know that representation is
mhm,
extremely important into showing our experiences, showing us that what we are capable of, what we can be, what we
mhm,
can do to make things better for things that aren't so great,
Mhm.
mhm,
and things that make us shine as individuals. And I think that the most important part to take away from this is to make sure that the things that we are censoring aren't things that allow people to have their voice,
mm.
so I'm very glad that we get a chance to like talk about this during this week.
Yeah, yeah. I'm very, very happy that we're able to spread more knowledge about what banned books is. So we hope that you guys enjoyed this episode today. Thank you. We want to give a shout out to Andre, first of all. Thank you
Yay,
for
thank
joining us today.
Of
you.
course, it was so much fun talking with you ladies. I am looking forward to hopefully coming back a couple more times. These
Of
were
course.
really fun
Yes.
conversations.
Yeah, definitely. So definitely stay tuned because we're going to be having episode number 4 premiere next month. And we're going to be talking a little bit about a program that we're having at our library called Star Wars Reads Day. So definitely stay tuned so you can learn all the Star Wars things that we're going to be doing and how you can participate if you're in our area. Also, one thing I want to say this: if there are banned books that you guys have read, you can actually let us know what you've read and what you would recommend as banned books coming up on our social media pages. So if you're not following us on social media, please do so. We're on Facebook. You can look for us, facebook.com/ARCPLS. So let us know in the comments, or if you just want to send us a message what you would recommend for Banned Books Week, definitely let us know. But thank you again for listening. We'll be back next month, so stay tuned. And we just want to say bye.
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 Thank you for listening. Tune in for new episodes every second and fourth Wednesday of the month. If you like hanging with your friendly nerdy librarians, follow our library on Facebook at ARCPLS or Instagram and Twitter at AugustaGALIB. Like we always say, we've got the FIC, so stick with us.